Welcome to Unmasking the Mic. My name is Ralph Anthony, current stand-up comedian and actor living in New York City. Each week I'll be sitting down with a fellow comedian to discuss how they navigate the world and how being in therapy helps aid them in that journey. Thanks for tuning in. Now let the unmasking begin. Welcome back to another episode of Unmasking the Mic. I'm your host, Ralph Anthony. And today my guest is New York City native and comedian Josh Alba. Thank you for coming on today, Josh. How you doing?
Good. I just woke up. Like the night shift. I don't know what day it is, but yeah. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. I feel like that's still okay to say for people.
Yeah.
We're still technically in a pandemic, so even though people are out, people are unmasked, people are vaccinated, I still feel like no one knows what the hell is going on. So
yeah, no, exactly. For some people, it's apparently over. For some people, they're still dealing with it.
Yeah,
so.
I really feel like this has been the longest yet fastest 2 years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
2 years went by very quick.
Yeah.
And at the same time, everything is just dragging. I totally get what you're saying with that.
Yeah. I think one thing that helped me with getting through, especially the last, 18 months, almost 2 years was, just was being in therapy. And I don't know what your schedule was like, but my therapist almost doubled down on our therapy sessions. We went from every 10 days to 2 weeks to every week, just making sure that I was checking in. Not that there was anything wrong, but she just wanted to make sure I was okay, which I thought was very sweet. Now, being in therapy for you, were you doubling down on therapy, or was your schedule as it was before?
Well, to be honest, I actually started therapy earlier this year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, when 3 people in a row tell you need therapy, I think it's time to go. I think that was a big red flag, because it's 3 people that don't know each other was have you ever considered therapy? And I'm just all right, I guess I gotta check this shit out. Last year, the whole year I didn't do it. So this year there was just a bunch of stuff going on in the beginning of the year for me. Also, I was open to it. One of my close best friends is also Hispanic, and she brought up a good point to me that a lot of us growing up do not really seek out therapy in our family, especially Hispanic men. And I thought that was also interesting when I thought about it, because I'm oh man, no wonder our families are so fucked up, because we just don't really go and seek it. So what I mean, we just tough it up and would do whatever, and just deal with it. And then I started earlier this year. In the beginning, I was going every week. I almost felt bad for my therapist, because I was listen, I gotta get a lot of shit out so you can, I gotta tell you everything, because that's what I hear, they gotta know everything, right? And I was going every week. Right now I don't know if it's good or bad. I am down to 1 visit a month.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Is that good? I'm not sure.
Well, I think it's whatever you feel comfortable with, or whatever your treatment plan, whatever the treatment plan your therapist thinks is most beneficial for you.
I guess, because back then she was all right, so next week what time? Automatically, because we need to talk more. Now it's just, we just recap what happened in the past month and talk about things we're working on and everything. And for me to deal with also what happened to me back in the beginning of September, and I'm just seeing her once a month. I mean, I don't know if that's good or bad. I think it's good, because I'm not actively seeking to see her compared to before, where I was I need to see her every week.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason I'm judging it off as maybe it's good. So
sure. Yeah. I mean, do you feel like there's a sense of relief? Do you feel like you're less anxious, more calm?
Definitely less anxious. I did have a problem with anxiety and trying to, the whole thing where you're all right, time to go to sleep, and then you're up the whole night. That thing. That definitely helped a lot with that. There's a lot of different tricks I did not know. Half the stuff I didn't know was, how they tell you like, yeah, it's work, and I'm like, oh god damn it, like everything I gotta do. What's the point? I just paid you money, But yeah, I'm very glad I started it, because honestly, I do not know, I guess, what my mental state would be in right now, especially after like this past 2 months. I don't know if I told you, I could talk about it. I did, the whole flood thing that happened. I lost my whole apartment. I was literally like sleeping when it happened. So I woke up to water coming in,
Holy
next
shit.
thing. Yeah, next thing you know, I had to like get out with my cat. As soon as we're getting out, that's when I hear the door like break in, because I was in the basement apartment, and
Yeah.
it was just like I was just sleeping, promoting my new monthly or whatever comedy show, and then the next day it's like, all right, you got to find somewhere to live.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's just like
Wow.
fuck, and just all my shit's destroyed. Everything's just ruined, and it's just like, the next day it's like my landlord's trying to help me move to like this temporary spot that I was staying at, and I'm just like just sitting there just with a blank face the whole day. Just I don't know what to say or whatever. I sat in the living room the whole day. The next day, just quiet. I couldn't even watch TV or anything like that. So like,
Of
to deal with
course.
all that, and I guess like I saw her right away immediately, but then after that, I haven't seen her for like a month. So
Yeah. Now, do you find that with therapy, seeing her, now that you're seeing her once a month, is it more just as like a kind of like a monthly just checkup? Like I know that you talk and you recap the last month. So do you just feel like it's more of like a comprehensive thing where it's like, hey, this is what I have going on, and you're dealing with everything, not specifically one thing.
I guess it is more like a checkup now, because back in I guess compared to the beginning, I did not know what therapy was about. If
Sure.
that makes sense. Yeah, because you can just show up and then just expect everything to be better. And now, since I know what it's all about and how it works and everything, I feel like, like, I don't know how to say it, but just it's definitely like a checkup, just coming in, talking, and and what's weird is another thing is, because I was told in the beginning before, like, don't, like, I had good advice from friends. They were like, just if you don't feel like the first person is the right one, you can always find another one, right?
Mm, yeah.
And I'm like, all right, I will keep that in mind in case, so I'm starting this. But the person that I first found, perfect. And I'm not just saying that, like, I just off the bat, she's
Yeah.
also used to be involved in the comedy,
Oh
which
wow.
was yeah, she used to dabble in improv apparently. So yeah, she kind of knows the whole comedy thing and everything, how it works, especially with stand up and everything.
Yeah, I think that yeah, I think that's amazing, dude. Um,
Mm, yeah. And there's also like the little tricks, I don't know, that I didn't even know existed. Like, you ever did one of those things where they would play music and you like kind of fall asleep, but not really? Like, you would just like relax really deep, and they would just like have a speech of things to say,
oh,
and it would
like mantras?
like a subliminal thing. Yeah, I guess. And then like
Yeah.
it would like help you be in a better mood subliminally, not like right away. I mean, it could be right away, but also like over time, doing it more and more
Yeah.
or something like. Yeah. Have you
Sure.
ever done
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I actually do that after I meditate every day. So
Nice.
I'm very big into meditation, and I do it religiously. I get up, I clean up, brush my teeth, and then I go back into I get back in. I usually do it sitting on my bed against the wall,
Hmm.
and I meditate for 10 to 20 minutes every morning, and at the end of it, I'll do like five to ten different mantras. and this was something that just additional that I needed because
Mm,
I felt a lot of angst with where I was going in my career, in my life, dealing with childhood trauma. And my therapist, much like yourself, the first time I met her, I was like, this is perfect. And she was
mhm,
very much on board with it. And so I'm a big believer in that because it all starts with your mindset. You could
mhm,
do anything, you can do anything to try to help yourself get better. But if your mind isn't where your heart and your soul need to be, you're never going to
mhm.
heal anything. You're going to be in the same spot. You're going to be spinning your wheel. It's like it's almost like you're on a hamster wheel, and you're just going around and around and through the motions.
Yeah, I felt like I was like that in the beginning, and that's what took me so long to figure out. And now it's just, I guess, the whole once a month. Like I get what I gotta do now instead of just before. Like, here's my problem. Can you fix it? What's wrong with me? And then like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah. And I think that that's a big misconception with therapy because we're programmed by society to think that there's something inherently wrong with us, when in fact, the world is completely different now. And so there's a lot of external pressure. There's a lot of external anxiety that weighs in on us every single day. Just picking up your phone, just picking up your phone and having, 10 notifications from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, that all creates extra pressure that you don't necessarily need. And
Yeah.
so, having these extra outlets to solidify what you're doing in therapy will help aid you in the process. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with any of us, but we've been
Hmm.
taught that if you express your emotions or if you go to therapy, that there's something wrong. Um,
Yeah.
I've heard it countless times, just from casual conversations to these interviews where people, when they finally tell the people that are close to them that they're in therapy, the first response is, "Why are you in therapy? There's nothing wrong with you."
Hmm.
And so you kind of feel slighted and you feel like an
Hmm.
outcast. And so, um, I think what you're doing is phenomenal. The fact that
No,
you just keep
thanks.
showing up is amazing, even though you might not need it. And that's the thing. People will assume that once they're feeling better that they don't need therapy ever again, and that's not the case. Therapy isn't like a one stitch fix.
Yeah.
So continuing to show up every month, that's a big accomplishment. The fact that that you need to see someone or speak to someone at least once a month, that's big. So,
Yeah.
applaud yourself for that.
Yeah, thanks. I remember there was a moment where I was like, "This is the first time she didn't schedule an appointment with me. Does this mean I pass?" Like like she usually it's like next week, next week, next week. Then it became every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks. All right, so in 2 weeks, available one. And then I remember the one day we had a great conversation, and all right, enjoy your weekend, bye. And I left, and I'm like, "Yeah, she didn't schedule. Did it mean I did it?" I
Yeah.
remember telling some friends, and I think like 2 weeks later, I was like, "Yeah, like she hasn't scheduled an appointment with me. I think that's good." And they're like, "No, don't." And I was like, "Yeah, you're kind of right." And then like I waited like a month. I was like, "Hey, can I see you?" And I was like, just checking in." And then I realized the checking in part was important because you can't just disappear and just be like, "Yeah, I'm good now," which is not really true. But
Yeah.
you know, um, yeah, and so it's funny. Uh, is it weird? I feel like, all right. Another thing I learned about therapy, and I have to we'll go off topic, but apparently I pay like the cheapest compared to everybody else. I'm learning that right now. I
Okay.
don't know because I pay like $40 a session.
Wow.
Okay, I guess I'm still winning. All right. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Like I didn't think it would be expensive or not. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the mindset you can't put a price tag on getting the help that you need, especially the mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that might have even been a little test on her part to see how committed you are to the process of trying to be your best version of yourself.
Yeah, she tricked me.
Yeah, she's into that black magic, man. She's
Yeah.
tricked you.
Yeah.
But that's good though that you reached out to her, because I think a lot of times people really just, they don't know what to expect with therapy. They don't know the process. We're not taught to value mental health. So no one knows how
Yeah.
to go about finding the resources that they need, staying committed to the resources that they need, and figuring out, what's the best course of action. And it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like there isn't a blueprint. No one's the same. No one's mental makeup is the same. So there can't be this like one size fits all solution to someone's mental health. And I think that's the misconception with therapy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different things that people need to do, whether it's, once a week, once a month, maybe every day for some people that need it.
Mm.
But there's a lot of things that go into it. Now, even though that you're on once a month, how did you feel? How did you feel after your first session? Did you feel like a huge sense of relief? What was that initial like gut reaction when you left or you got off the call with your therapist?
I felt like something good is coming.
Yeah.
I remember. I did feel like a relief. I did. I remember I just kept thinking in my head when I left, I was like, all right, we're getting somewhere. Something good is like gonna happen. I
Mm.
don't know, but I felt better than what I did before. I guess just getting a bunch of stuff out. But then I felt bad because I was also like, all right, here's everything that's happening. There's gonna be an 8-part episode to this because we only have an hour. And I'm like, what else? And then it continued like that for like I guess another 2 weeks because it was like, oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to tell you this, and but yeah, in the beginning I did feel like a slow sense of release, and it took a minute to get there. One big thing that helped me was that subliminal trick, not trick, well, that little technique.
Yeah.
Because I remember I was like, yeah, let's try it, I'm open to it, right? We did it.
Mhm.
And I remember walking in my car and I start driving around doing errands, and the neighborhood I usually don't like that neighborhood. um I was living I was living in Bayside. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of Bayside anymore. So I'm usually just driving around, just the way everyone drives out there, and it drives me nuts. But I don't know, for some reason I just noticed, like when I got home, I was like, man, I'm in such a good mood. What
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah.
Like, it was just so weird. It lasted a good few hours, but it was just very strange. I was just like, I'm in a really good mood today. I don't know why. And I
Yeah.
was just like, oh wow, okay, maybe that does work. Although it's not like there are certain things that will help me out, and I was like, all right, this is good, this is working.
That's great. That's great. And I love hearing that, because I feel like that's how it should be. When
Mm-hmm.
you leave your first therapy session, you should feel that sense of relief. You should feel almost like you're floating, because you're literally getting that negative energy, that toxicity that's in your body. You're getting it out, and
Mm-hmm.
just I think we've all been trained to just keep pushing things down. And once you finally let it out, you release that valve, you're a different person. You're not being
Mm-hmm.
held down by your insecurities and your anxiousness. You're not being held back by your trauma. And it's certainly a work in progress, but given the fact that you felt like you were, driving around, you felt like the change in your mood, that's huge. And that just speaks to the volumes of how
Mm-hmm.
positive therapy can be. Now,
Yeah, definitely.
when you first started getting into, when you first started seeking out help, was your family receptive to it?
They weren't against it. For example, I think the first person I told was my mom.
Mm.
because it was on the weekend. Sometimes I help her out. I drive out to her, and she has to go get grocery shopping. I'll help her out with that because I have the vehicle. She doesn't drive, you know. And I brought it up to her, and I was like, "Hey, so I started therapy last week, actually." And she was like, "Why?" And then I was like, "I was like, you know why? Come on."
Yeah.
Pick a topic. Just joking around with her. She was like, "All right, do you like it?" And she was like, "Yeah." She was like, "All right, that's cool." Like, she was very for it. Um, Nobody else really knows, but yeah. And I try to suggest it because, especially with my sister, because of the fact that, like, growing up, we do deal with a lot of stuff, and especially my family, we dealt with a lot of things growing up, and also it's not really taught to seek therapy or anything like that. It's just bottle it up, or
Yeah.
especially like in my family, like it's just like, all right, deal with it. It is what it is. It's being an adult. I'm like, all right, well, sometimes it's not all right. And like, you know what I mean? Like, can't just be like everything's part of being an adult, you know?
Yeah. Do you think that their mentality about therapy and the response to it was based on like growing up in New York City, or do you think it has more to do with just being a Latin family?
I think it's both. I never heard of anybody going into therapy in general. Also, like, they would, if I did, it was kind of like kept to themselves. I know my cousins went to therapy because my uncle passed away at the time. So that was the only time I've heard of anybody in my family going to therapy.
Mhm.
Besides that, no one ever goes. Most people, we barely go to the doctor.
Mm.
So like it's already one thing to, all right, accomplish. You went to your regular doctor to seek out a therapist.
Yeah.
So I feel like that barely happens there. In New York, I don't really hear of anybody else going to therapy. Even like my friends that grew up here, I don't think any of them even thought about it or came across their heads that maybe they would be open to seeing a therapist or anything like that.
Mm.
So it was funny because, like, I hear, doing comedy, you hear about all the comics, we're all in therapy, like that thing. And like, yeah, I've never done it. I've been doing stand up on and off for almost 10 years this next month.
Nice.
Um, and as probably this year is probably like my first year where I'm like, all right, I'm finally doing it. I'm actually that stereotypical comedian that's in therapy, like everyone else says, but I love it. So,
Yeah. And I think that that's all that really matters. I think
hmm
you feel a lot of pressure to assimilate and be like everyone else when you can only be your own person. But that thinking only comes with time in life. And
hmm
you know, there's this New York tough mentality being hard as nails. It's not gonna fly in this world anymore.
no,
And it's funny that you mentioned that with the stand-up comedy aspect. Obviously, this is a podcast about mental health with comedians
hmm
because everybody has two ideas of comics, and it's either we're so happy-go-lucky, why would we ever need therapy, or it's the depressive, of course I'm in therapy comedian. And so you can't put all the comics in these two boxes. There's a lot of different boxes, as there's are a lot of different comics. The thing
hmm
that gets me with comedians in therapy is the ones that say they get on stage, whether it's at a show or at a mic, and they'll talk about therapy, but they'll say, I don't need therapy. I have comedy. I just get on stage. And that is that, let me tell you, I hear that. I get up and I walk out. I don't care if I'm on the other side of the room. I will get up and walk out because it bothers me on two different levels. One, it's disrespectful to stand up. This is not your therapy
hmm
session. Okay. I'm not your
no,
therapist. I want to hear jokes. The crowd wants you to be funny. We don't want your
hmm
depressive nonsense. Okay. Nobody wants to
yeah,
hear that. Okay. The other thing is that it's disrespectful to therapy. You know, it's like
Hmm.
you don't have a medical degree. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're just spitting into a microphone. It's just your verbal diarrhea.
Yeah, I never like I could get the part where it makes you feel better temporary and you might think in your head that comedy is therapy, but it's not. Like I've never felt the need to say that. Like every comic around me was going to therapy. I did at the time I wasn't going to therapy, but I still never felt the need to say that. That's just such a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
It's very shitty. Like, no, it's not therapy at all.
Do you see yourself staying in therapy?
Yes.
Good. I love to hear that.
Yeah, I don't see myself not doing it at all.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where it's just like, you know, taking a shower every day. You know, it's like I just
Hmm.
want to be clean. Mentally, I just want to be mentally clean.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel. I just feel like I have to do it. Also, since we were talking about stand up, also I feel weird, but this is a weird thing to think? Did it feel like you made you better, not just at stand up, but like handling it?
Yes. I don't think it's
Like,
I think
and
it's
then
weird at all.
also like not just like like just handling like the ups, the downs, the bombing, like performing better because of it, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know. I feel like it made me even a lot better than before because of it, which
Yeah.
is a weird thing because we never even focused on stand up, and I guess like it's also a confidence boost at the same time. But no, I will never say comedy is therapy.
Yeah.
That is a if standing in a dark corner in the back of a bar is therapy to you, I don't know what to say. Like, I don't know. No.
Yeah, I feel like therapy is a skeleton key for all of us that unlocks the doors that we have seemingly kept locked for years.
Yeah.
You know, as soon as I've been in therapy for now coming up on almost 4 years. And
Nice.
thank you. Yeah, it's I love my therapist. I don't know what I would do without her, truthfully.
Mm.
And you know, she's never going to listen to this, so I can give her as many shout outs as I want, and she'll never understand. But what I will say is that about a year and a half ago, we started hitting my childhood, and it was one of those things where as soon as we started talking about it, I felt this monumental shift in my whole life. And my writing became more clear. I was able to tackle, subjects and premises that I never felt comfortable talking about. And I think it's that raw, just visceral emotion that comes from doing stand up and being free. And
Hmm.
therapy will help you achieve that. So I love
Hmm.
I love hearing that it helped you become a better comic, because that's just one of the ancillary benefits of being in therapy. Everything else becomes easier because you're not being constrained by your thoughts and your emotions, because you have an
Yeah.
outlet. I mean, imagine trying to just talk. I mean, you've done stand up, so it's like imagine trying to talk about something that's fun and exciting and you love doing it,
Hmm.
while inside you're being you're ripping yourself to shreds.
Right.
And therapy will help heal those wounds on the inside to make you a better person on the outside.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And then just also like just handling certain things like involved with comedy, which, again, like it just very subliminally I did not expect it to do. Like as far as like handling like negative aspects of stand up, like dealing with bombing or dealing with interacting with others, being left on when you think you're being ignored to do a show but you're really not. You know what I mean, like learning how to deal with other aspects in comedy. And surprisingly therapy has helped without me knowing it's helped, which is very strange. And I know, I'm like, yeah, it's definitely because of therapy. I know it's because of that, because if it wasn't for that I'd be a totally different person.
Yeah. Yeah, I think therapy helps solidify this thinking that things happen for you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
is somebody not getting back to you for a show? It's happening for you, because when you
Mm-hmm.
want to do that show, it could be a night where you could be home working on a different project, or the show could be terrible and
Mm-hmm.
you have that night free, so you get on another show. You know,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it just, if you change your perspective and you change your mindset, that's what therapy really helps you do. It helps you go inside to figure out the who's and the what's and the whys of the way that you're feeling. And that's
Yeah.
very powerful. I really love hearing this stuff, man.
Yeah.
It's the whole
Like
premise of the podcast, you know.
yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's
Like
it's
I was gonna say, like, also, like, there's certain comics that, like, oh man, they get so upset, like, if they don't get answered back to do a specific show. And I'm just like, I also, like, I have these things in my head. I'm like, if they never get back to you, you can always perform somewhere else, right? That's what I tell myself. Now, before therapy, it was a little hard to practice that, but now it's just like a breeze. It's like whatever. Like, if they don't want to put you, like, if they never get back to you, it is what it is. You just perform somewhere else. And then when I see certain comics like just driving driving themselves crazy over, like, they won't book me, and I'm just like, why? Who cares? Are you getting paid $100 out of it? Like, what does this show do for you? Is it, is there somebody from industry here? Like, I don't it doesn't matter. Like, you're stressing yourself out over it. I know somebody who they're stressing about not doing this one show, right? And I did a show. I was on a show. So they were stressed out about not doing this one show, and I didn't understand why. I'm like, who cares? Everyone does shows in the same venue. It's just a specific time slot, right?
Mhm.
So I did a show after that show, and I came in a little early, and I found out they were on that show, and I was like, oh, look, you're finally on the show.
Yeah.
After it was bothering you for a while for some reason, right?
Yeah.
I remember doing this show after, and one of the audience. This is funny that this happened. One of the audience members came up to me like, "Oh, thank you," and I was like, "For what?" And like, "You guys were all great, blah blah blah," which is very nice for someone to come up to you after a show
Yeah.
and say that. And I was like, "Thank you, I really appreciate that." And she was like, "Thank you because the last show sucked." And in my head, I'm like, "That's the show that people were going crazy over to be on," and I'm like, see how it just reminds you it doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
like it doesn't, and especially like dealing with certain things like that. Like, who cares if you're not on the show? You do another one, like you'll get up somewhere. It is what it is. And then also, like, I recently got into producing a show.
Congratulations. That's
And
a big
yeah,
step.
thank you. um, so like I tried in the past to produce a show and it never really worked out, but this is the first time that I'm actually like consistent. Like, this is my third one coming up, and dealing with all the stuff that you have to deal with promoting a show. And I'm doing it by myself. I don't have a partner yet, but because right now it's just once a month. But just dealing with, everyone messaging you wanting to do it, but then you want everyone to do it. It's not like you don't want them on it, but you want to build it first, that way you can have an audience and everything. Like, the first one didn't go so well. I mean, it was fun, but like there was like two people in the audience, luckily.
Yeah.
But that was also because, like, as soon as I started promoting it, the flood happened. I had like 2.5 weeks of not thinking about that. And I was like, oh crap, my show's a Saturday. I have
Yeah.
2 days to promote it, and I was like, I came up on stage. I was like, I didn't have a good month. Like,
Yeah.
but the last one was great. I'm hoping this next one's great. And also just dealing with it mentally is just like, all right, if I wasn't in therapy, I'd probably be, not handling certain things well, which is not true. It's all in your head, you know.
Yeah.
It's just, it is what it is, whatever.
Yeah. It's so funny how we're so insecure as comics, so unbelievably insecure about that stuff, about
Mm-hmm.
spots and bookings and rankings, and I say rankings like where we feel we fit in the comedy community. And And we live with this scarcity mindset where it's like there are hundreds of shows happening every week. There are dozens. I don't know. Post COVID, I think there's maybe half amount of shows. So let's say there's 100 shows a week, whatever. That's 100 shows. 100 shows. Every show has an average of 6 to 8 comics. That's 800 chances to get a spot. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
it's like that's insane. We
Yeah,
have
and there's also a lot of comics too.
Yeah. And we all have this mindset where it's like it's never enough. And I fell prey to it for many years. Before COVID, I was working in 4 different clubs. And now I barely work in any of them because I did not go out during COVID. I stayed in, I did Zoom, and now I'm fighting to get back in. And
Mm,
before COVID, before I really delved really deep into therapy, these were things that I would struggle with. Think I would base
mhm.
my self-worth as a person on what I was able to accomplish as a comedian. And the two don't go hand in hand. We all live with that scarcity mindset. And I would go out on a limb. I would say 75% of the comedians in New York City right now base their self-worth off of shows that they're doing.
100%.
And it's such a terrible way to live our lives. Such a terrible.
No, yeah. It kind of, when you start thinking that way, it starts like setting you back, like not just as a comic, but also like setting you back just like mentally in your head, because then you start thinking, oh, I'm not good enough
Yeah.
and all that stuff, and it's not healthy, and it's like it doesn't, like I try to give the advice, like if it's asked, I'm like, but if it's not taken, then I don't know, like I've learned it's not healthy for you to do that. It's definitely a lot better if you go out to play. Like this year, actually, was my first time I performed comedy outside of New York City. I mean, I
Nice.
performed in Long Island and upstate, but like in March, I went to Austin.
Hey,
Uh,
let's
yeah,
go.
my originally I went because my best friends, they dealt with like last winter in Austin. You know how bad it was. People were homeless. They lost power and everything for like a month and all that. So originally I was just gonna go to check in on them and see how things were, and they were gonna show me the city. So then it turned into a whole comedy thing when once I found out like the Creek and the Cave was opening April weekend, first April weekend.
Hmm.
So I went out there April, or like the end of March, beginning of April. I did some open mics out there and met some of the comics in the Austin scene. And I was like, all right, this is cool. And then I went back in July. I went back out there and I met more comics. I kind of understand what the scene is out there. I mean, that's a whole other thing. But I met more good Austin comics that I like out there. That it's a very cool scene out there if you can find it. Because if you get dragged into the other stuff, it's terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, but just performing comedy in Austin, I was lucky enough to do a show almost every night I was out there. I got to do like 6 shows out there,
Awesome.
and I got paid for some or whatever. It was just more like meeting the comics in the scene. And then also like every time I did a show, I had people in the audience coming up to me wanting to follow me on Instagram. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
sure. I didn't really do that much out here, but nowadays Instagram is like the thing. So like I have people wanting to follow me on Instagram after shows and all that. And then I actually had a show like I think like 2 or 3 weeks ago where somebody was in New York and saw my story and saw where I was gonna be, and they came out to the show because of that. And they're like, "Oh yeah, we're visiting New York, and I saw you were doing the show." And I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool. It's like a little small following thing, I
Yeah.
guess. Like that's how it starts."
Yep.
And I'm like, "That would never happen if I didn't go somewhere else." And I'm like, "All right, I need to start going to more places." I was talking to my therapist about this too. I'm like, I want to start traveling more, and I mean, I try not to for comedy because last time I did feel bad. I barely saw my friends, but also like, I do want to do it more for comedy. Like, I have plans to go to LA next year, Miami. I actually might. I'm probably going to be going to Austin first week of December. I'll be going back there, and
Nice.
I'm thinking about going to Chicago.
Oh,
Like
definitely.
Yeah, all in 1 year. I'm planning. I'm like, I'm gonna do all of that for like a week. See what happens.
Yeah, I think that that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like everyone should try if they could, just to mental like the New York comics here. I feel like you got to do it somewhere else just to get a break from it here, because if you're just doing comedy here and you're starting to like base your worth on what, like you were saying earlier, what show you do, that's like completely not healthy.
No, not at
It's
all.
like, because like at the end of the day, you do it, and then what happens after? You have a little hang, you go home, and then you wake up the next day and you're like, oh, nothing really happened, and it just
Yeah.
makes you more upset, and it's not good for you at all.
Yeah. I think
Hmm.
we have this mindset of that hustle or die. And it's all about the hustle, grinding out, and you need a mental break. I'll be honest with you. The 18 months or 15 months that I spent on Zoom, one of the greatest things I could have ever done, because I got to
Nice.
work with comics all over the country, all over the world. And
Hmm.
it's very interesting on how other scenes work, operate. And it helped restore my faith in just people and comedians.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And thank
Yeah.
you. New York is a place, that mentality of what have you done lately? What have you done for me lately? And no matter what you have done, I think New York, if you haven't hit a certain plateau in your career, New York has a very unique way of making you feel like you haven't done enough.
Hmm.
And I think that that's a terrible way to live. I think it's a
Hmm.
very terrible way to live. I personally don't think comedy is hard. I don't think it's hard. I don't think writing
Hmm.
jokes is hard. I don't think telling jokes is hard. I think what makes stand up comedy hard is everyone else that has their hands in the jars, from the bookers to the clubs to the managers to the producers. And I think that that is something that seemed like it was going to change because of COVID. And then sure enough, it all goes back to the way it used to be.
Yeah. And
And
then also, like, I was gonna say that a lot of comics do comedy. It seems like they're like, oh, I need to do good because there's other comics on the show, and I need them to see me. I'm like, shouldn't you do good for the crowd?
yeah,
Like, that's just not a good way of thinking. Because, like, or you do good in front of the other comic, who cares? They're probably gonna be outside smoking a cigarette or something. Like, they probably won't show up till late. Like, it's just not a good mental thing. I think therapy, what, to be honest, I did one Zoom comedy show, and that was after, I think, like, probably in this past summer.
okay,
I finally did one. That's my cat. Um, yeah, and I regret, because I didn't do it at all during the pandemic. I'm not hating on it. It just didn't like appeal to me, and I just went into a whole nother thing. I was like, let me try to get into something similar. I was doing Twitch.
okay,
I was like, all right, I'm gonna take this time off, and I'm gonna see if I could try to build Twitch.
yeah,
I was like, let me try to be successful on here while this is going on. And I was, I learned how it worked, which was pretty cool, and I learned my own thing. Um, I wasn't like successful or anything at it, but I made some little money out of it, so I guess that's something,
sure,
But um, and then, like, I did my first Zoom show, and it was one of those shows where there was other comics from like all over the world on it. I felt bad because I was at Coney Island at the time, so I couldn't really like stick around, because I was like, yeah, I'm doing this with everyone. But also, it made it for a fun Zoom stand-up set, because like everybody's from like India, like, and I'm from New York, and I have the cyclone behind me.
yeah.
For this, I'm like, hey, what's up? And then someone's going up on the cyclone. I'm like, you might see someone die right now. I don't know. They might fly off the thing.
Yeah.
This is a weird. This is not a Zoom background. This is real. This is really happening. But it was cool, and I do regret not doing more of those.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it wasn't for everyone. Zoom put stand up for a lot of people in a different perspective, and I think that that was the most unique thing about it, because you're doing stand up, you're doing comedy with so many different people from different parts of the world with different cultures and different backgrounds and different perspectives. But the thing that I found similar with a lot of the other comics that were outside of the city was that they were having fun. You know,
Mhm.
they were having fun. And that's what stand up boils down to. That was my father's biggest lesson for me. He goes,
Mm.
just always remember to have fun. And I think sometimes we get lost in that thinking. We forget to
Yeah.
have fun because we're so stuck on who's going to be seeing me perform. What show am I going to do? You know, what am I going to get out of this? When all you want to do is just make people laugh. And that's the cool part, to bring it back to therapy, because I've talked to my therapist about stand up, and just
Mhm.
hearing someone's perspective who has no connection to stand up comedy, who really doesn't watch stand up on Netflix, doesn't go to comedy clubs, but to hear their perspective about something that I do for a living, I find that very rewarding, because
Mhm.
it's like she has no emotional attachment to any of it, not to stand up, not to me, not to any of it. And to
Mm.
hear them talk about it and come back to just having fun and enjoying it, it's a very beautiful thing, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, especially when you're having fun, it makes you even better
Yeah.
just on stage, and we do forget that sometimes, and you gotta remind yourself. Like, I try like literally right before like I go up, I get the you get the nerves, right, and everything. But like I do this thing now, especially like because of therapy. I don't know why. I do this thing where I just like I sway back and forth, like I'm getting ready to jump in a basketball game. I don't know why. I start like moving my arms around, and I just keep telling myself, "Have fun, have fun, have fun."
Yeah. Oh,
Because like who cares? Just do your little notes that the person said before, if anything, if you have to, and then just have fun with it.
yeah, that's it. There are times where I go up on stage, and I did this last night, and I wrote what I had, like, I had 8 minutes. I had an 8 minute set, and I wrote out, like, I don't know, six different things I wanted to talk about. Was I
Hmm.
going to do all six? No, but I was like, you know what? Let's see where this show is going to go. Let's see where this crowd is going to go, because there are times where you go up and you're so rigid and you're so stuck on your set of what you want to do, that you forget to be present, you forget to be in the moment, and it takes
Hmm.
away from the enjoyment, and the crowd will sense that you're not there. And
Yep.
I think I love that you just, you know like, you just let yourself be free.
Hmm.
You let yourself have that moment, you let yourself let go. And that's really awesome to hear. I had a buddy of mine I used to run shows with down at the Pair,
Mm.
and he said to me one night, this is probably about three years ago, maybe 3.5 years ago, and he goes, "My favorite thing about watching you go up to host is before the show even starts, as soon as you get up on stage, it's like watching someone jump out of an airplane without a parachute." And I was like,
That's
that's amazing.
that's that sounds scary, but also that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's just that very freeing thing. But I'll tell you what, when he told me that, I had just been in therapy for probably maybe like 2 or 3 months, and just
Mm.
experimenting with this new sense of freedom that I
Yeah. Hmm.
so I found that very fascinating, that was the compliment that I got. Now I have a very interesting question for you.
Yeah.
Most comics, most male comics that I ask, sometimes they shy away from it. Um, are you an in-session crier, or do you cry after therapy?
I've cried during therapy.
Nice. That's
I've
I love hearing. Listen, I love hearing it, because I since dude, since I've been in therapy, and finished acting school in the last 2 years. I cry at the most, just I cry probably like once a week, tear up at least once a week. And I find crying very therapeutic. And it's amazing. I can't tell you how amazing it is to hear when another man admits that he cries.
Yeah, it was just funny. Like, I laughed so hard because your reaction, like, "Hey, do you cry?" "Yeah." "Nice." Like, that's just so funny. That's just so funny to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I haven't really had, like, I had a very shitty year. But also just in general, like, I'm just like a very emotional guy, and there's just certain things where I bring up, it just happens, where it just comes out, and it's like there's no stopping it, and I'm just like, all right, it's just happening, and I'm just used to it by now.
That's great.
I
That's
mean,
great.
there was one time though, like, I was trying not to. It was the day after that whole thing happened, and my friend came to drop off some stuff to me, and I just like, I don't know, I was in the room quiet all day. When I saw her, I just like lost it. I just broke down. But then also I'm trying not to, so like I'm trying to make jokes out of it. So I just look like a psychopath. And I'm like, oh man, this looks crazy. But yeah, no, I have when we talk about certain things, I try not to. I feel very weird about not like hiding something from my therapist. So if I can't be truthful to her, then I'm not gonna get anything out of it. So like I will, wherever she goes, I will go with her, and then like we'll just get it out there, and then like some things are very hard. A lot of stuff I've put up with, growing up. So yeah, no, I have. And then also sometimes maybe after, depending on what we spoke about. There was one time even after, I was just,
Well, we're coming to the end of the podcast. And so I always end it with 2 questions. I call it 2 for 2. If you could describe therapy in one word, what would it be?
eye-opening. Well, that's 2 words. God damn it. I screwed up already.
Listen, the judges will let it play. Eye-opening. So
revealing.
Even better.
Yeah.
Even better. Listen, that's your gut reaction, and that's what I want. I want the honesty of it. And the final question is, if you had somebody that was coming to you wondering about therapy, they were on the fence about getting into it, what advice would you give them to start speaking to a therapist?
Just do it. Like stand up. Like, how people ask you, how do you get into stand-up comedy? Just do it. Just better not doing it. If you're thinking about it, you should do it. Look under your insurance, see who's in your area, and then take it from there. I got lucky. My first person we hit off the bat very well. You gave me very good friends, like immediately. And I'm aware with my friends that just never happens. So like, if you don't feel comfortable talking to them, or if you don't feel comfortable, you don't think it's working, definitely look for another person. But definitely do it. Definitely jump into it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You heard it here first from Josh Alba. Go check into it, speak to someone, and if it doesn't feel like it's the right fit at the right time, go find someone else. Just don't turn yourself off to therapy.
Yeah, just don't think it's not working. Just definitely find somebody else.
That's it. I love it. Well, Josh, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate you taking the time out to speak to me about your journey with therapy and mental health. And I want to applaud you for seeking out help for yourself. And
same to you as well. 4 years. That's great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Well, Josh, have yourself a great day. And
you too.
And thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome.
I want to thank you for taking some time out of your day to join us on this mental health journey. My name is Ralph Anthony, and this has been another episode of Unmasking the Mic. We'll be back next week with a brand new interview. Until then, stay present, stay in the moment, and keep your head up.